Welcome. This is part one of 3 videos. What is this about? This is about AI, God, and the limits of knowledge. Just a little theme, a little video that I wanted to do in a 3-part essay on this topic. It's kind of like crossing a bridge, from ignorance to some kind of understanding, so I thought I'd give it a go. But before I start, I guess the main thing is to discuss the definitions, and I think that the idea of God being such a broad term that means so many things to different people, I wanted to get that one out of the way first. So really, when I say God, I'm talking about just everything that is in our possible understanding, and how it relates to knowledge. It is all of knowledge and all that we can know and more than what we can know, right? So if we look at the history of various definitions of theistic gods, we can, if you have some kind of theistic understanding, we can take from Spinoza's pantheistic God. So God is on all of nature. I won't go into too much detail right now, but that's the essential first definition that I want to get out of the way. So we want to take that a next step further than Spinoza's definition of God, which is pantheistic, and that's panentheistic, and that is a certain God that is everything that is in nature and that is outside of nature. So things that we can know and the things we cannot even know, right? So, which I think expresses and defines one word, one definition of God that we can use for all things, for all knowledge. So with that in mind, I want to talk about the first thing, and that is what is knowledge, discovery, and how it fits within our experience. Part 2 we'll talk about technology and AI, and part 3 will kind of bring things together. So part 1 would be we're going to talk about the essential understanding and definition and expression of what it means to know and to discover. So let's get right into that. So the first thing I wanted to mention was that what does it mean to actually know something, right? What do we mean when we know something? And that is, I guess, truth. Truth, by definition, is something which is observable, which is repeatable, and which is agreed upon by a certain group of people. So a group of people can have their truths and a certain individual can have their truths. Now, knowledge is an interesting thing because you can know something and it could be wrong, and to know something, you could be right. So being right or being wrong does not make a difference to knowing. So let's stick with the idea of knowledge, what we can know. We're not concerned about whether it's right or wrong. We're just concerned about what it means to know, and what discovery means, and how we can get correct knowledge that may or may not be correct, right? So we get correct knowledge. We get knowledge that we believe is correct. Whether it is objectively correct, that's not the point. So as an individual, you can say, for instance, that through the process of discovery, we know something, right? So by the scientific process, the scientific method, what we do is we have a theory or an idea, and then we give it a certain set of experimental constraints to try and discover if the theory is correct or not. So when we do that, we go through this process to know something. And then when we know that thing, we expand our ability to know more, because by knowing something, we get more questions. We get more questions about the discovery itself. So as a quick example of knowing, we can say, well, we know that the Earth is round and that space is distant, the stars are distant. And so with that knowledge, we have questions, well, what are the stars made of? What are the stars? We discover what we do, go through the whole process of discovery and learning and observation to discover something more. And when we know something, we know that we have other questions to answer, right? So with that in mind, it's kind of like, well, what do we do with that knowledge? Perhaps we act on it. So say, for instance, we know something, we have learned and discovered, we know more and more and more, right? So that's essentially the first part of what we're trying to work through. We have this way of finding out things about the world around us, about learning, and then we can act upon those things to learn more. Now, how does that fit in within the limits of what we can know, right, as humans? So I want to get to the answer to that question right at the end, but I believe that we can get there once we find out what knowledge is and what how we get through the process and what it does for us, right? So what we have here is a process that we can use to discover things that we can learn and then know more. And then we take that knowledge and we apply it and we do something with it, and then we discover new things. We have a process of discovery, whether it's through logical reasoning, whether it's through conceptualization, and we know these things, right? So the next step is we have what is knowledge in the sense of understanding the world around us. Now, this is really important when we get to the next part of AI and technology. We as humans, we discover something about something. Right, we know something, we kind of aim to prove it, and then what we do is we get, say for instance, we discover something about the stars, we have a concept of the star, right? So before that, we knew that the stars were there, but we didn't know that they were called stars. They might have been spirits of our descendants, but that's the concept, right? That's the concept that we had. But once we go and once the knowledge expands for us to know more about what stars are, whether that's correct or not, whether they are spirits, whether the terminology that we use defines that. The question is then, well, what do we do with that concept? We break it down into its constituent parts. It's a reductionist part of it, but then it fits within, it fits not only within itself as a concept, it actually opens up the door to new concepts that are related to it. So we have this idea of knowledge being an understanding about a certain concept that has connections to different concepts, that is encompassed within other concepts. And knowledge is the entire area of conceptual links and encapsulations. A good way to express this is in set theory. In mathematics, you have a set of things, and that set of things can be a combination of sets of other things and can be a set of sets. So we have a sort of better view of what it means to know now, right? We have these concepts and we can then work into those concepts, discover more about it. And the process of discovery is kind of like digging. We can dig into something, we can work through ideas, we can communicate with other people about our own knowledge and then share with them what we believe. And they can share with us what they believe, and then we exchange that information to come to a closer semblance of our understanding of reality. And that allows us to navigate this world because we have a conceptual understanding of the world. So if I don't have vision, I can still have a conceptual understanding, but that doesn't encompass the sort of shapes that we would see if we knew what something looked like. So for instance, you might have someone that is blind or that is deaf, but they still have concepts of the things that we're talking about. So they still have concepts and they still have an understanding and they still have knowledge and they can still expand that knowledge, right? So you're not limited by your senses, just you need some kind of access to the information, right? And that's important because knowledge is given or is discovered through certain senses. And this is where I kind of want to make the jump to technology, right? Because this is where we take a step from our senses, which are in essence a way of transforming information, right? So they're a kind of technology. Our ears are a kind of technology. Our eyes are a form of technology that has evolved over millions of years to take information and to, have it process and then gives us knowledge, conceptual knowledge. we look at it at a high level, we're a kind of information absorbing machine, but not only that, we do something with that information. We express something, we do turn that information, transform that information into something else. Take in, take out, input, output. It's only that simple, right? So let's jump into a quick introduction about technology, and I'll give you a summary of what I believe is that technology is an accelerator. But the details of how I came to that conclusion and what AI is within that, we'll save for the next video. Thanks for tuning in. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next one to talk more about this topic because it's really interesting. I'll catch you later. Bye.